Today, we're going to be talking about a really powerful book by Danya Fast called The Best Place. It's an incredible look into the lives of young people trying to survive in Vancouver, dealing with addiction, homelessness, and, well, the very systems that are supposed to be helping them. So the book kicks off with this just incredible sense of hope. This is a quote from a young man named Lee. He's talking about Vancouver, a city that, at the time, literally had license plates that said, "The best place on earth." You can just feel that promise of a fresh start, right? And then, bam, the book just hits you with this question, and it's really the central tension of the entire story. Who actually gets to experience this city as the best place?
Right away, the book dives into this huge gap between the dreams that brought these young people to the city and the world they actually found when they got there.
And this is so important to get right from the start. The young people in this book, they weren't just defined by addiction. They came to the city with the same dreams that so many of us have. You know, a good job, maybe a family, a place to call home. They wanted to belong. And this really just says it all, doesn't it? On the one hand, you have that glittering, postcard-perfect image of Vancouver. And on the other, the stark, cold reality of the institutional hallways where they ended up spending so much of their time. It's like a visual of a promise being broken. You know, to get a handle on their lives, you've got to understand these two different worlds they were constantly moving between. There's the downtown south, that's where you find the youth services, but they're kind of squeezed between fancy condos and nightclubs, and any drug use is kept hidden. Then you have the downtown east side, which is much more well-known as the public face of the addiction crisis. They were always navigating between these two completely different spaces. Now, to really get what's going on here, the book gives us this incredibly powerful idea. It's not a static life on the streets. It's this constant, exhausting cycle that the author calls the churn. So what is the churn? It's this relentless movement, this constant ricocheting between all the different parts of the city's care system. Think emergency shelters, rundown hotels, supportive housing, treatment programs, back and forth. The key insight is that a life gets defined by this constant managed movement, not by stability. So what does that actually look like day to day? Well, someone might go from a shelter to a tiny hotel room, maybe get into supportive housing, but then a crisis hits, maybe a relapse, maybe an eviction, and they end up in the hospital or even jail. And the whole process just starts all over again. It's a loop that feels almost impossible to escape. And the book is just gut-wrenching when it talks about what this actually does to a person. It's more than just being homeless. It's the constant loss, losing your friends, your community, the few things you actually own. And maybe the most surprising point the book makes is about the boredom. Just profound, soul-crushing boredom from a life spent waiting for a caseworker, waiting for a meal, waiting for a bed, just waiting for anything to change. And this quote from Lula, man, it just stops you in your tracks. After years of this cycle, the whole structure of your day is just about survival. Finding drugs, getting money, securing a place to sleep. So she's asking this really terrifying question. If you take all that away, what's left? How do you fill that massive void? So, all of this, it's all building up to the book's biggest, most challenging argument. It's about how these systems, which are often built with the best intentions, can end up failing the very people they're designed to help. First, we have to remember the backdrop here. The context for all of this is absolutely devastating. A public health emergency was declared back in 2016 because of a toxic drug supply. The number of lives lost is just staggering, and that reality hangs over everything in the later parts of the book. And here's where the book really flips the script on how we usually think about this stuff. We tend to think that dangerous drug use is the cause of all these other problems. But what this research shows is that so often it's actually an effect. It's a response to the incredible pain of homelessness, poverty, and deep trauma. This leads to this idea the author calls the broken promised land. For young people who've been let down again and again by institutions, foster care, the justice system, an offer of help doesn't always feel like a lifeline. It can actually feel like a threat. Why? Because talking to a social worker might mean you lose your housing, or in the most heartbreaking cases, you could lose custody of your child. The trust is just gone. Okay, so why does telling the story this way matter so much? Why is it so important to get these individual stories instead of just looking at the numbers? It's because it pulls us out of the spreadsheets and forces us to see the actual human beings at the center of it all. We get to hear about their dreams, their complexities, their pain. The book refuses to just paint them as damaged people. Instead, It shows us how badly they wanted things to be different. And just look at this photo. It's so powerful. And what's amazing is that it was actually taken by Patsy, one of the young women in the book. She's the one who titled it Where We've Ended Up. It's this quiet, reflective moment, a search for a little bit of peace in the middle of all that chaos. That's something a statistic could never, ever show you.
And that's really the question the book leaves you with, right? It takes us all the way back to the beginning, to that hopeful quote from Lee and that license plate slogan. After everything, you're just left wondering, what would it really take to build a city that lives up to that promise? Not just for some of us, but for everyone.